Alrighty, welcome back everyone. We just talked about that Texas OU game that's going to go down in the Cotton Bowl this upcoming weekend. One of the best games in college football, and it's going to be incredible to watch it in its new slot and its new conference in the SEC at 3:30. So going to be awesome to watch that one. But let's get into these two teams because Alabama and Tennessee have a ton to figure out this upcoming weekend, and they got a ton to prove to their fan bases. There's no two ways about that. So where do they go? How do they go about this? It's going to be a really interesting thing to watch as we move forward in this season. And Alabama has a very interesting one. You go on the road to South Carolina, a team that absolutely can get after the quarterback, absolutely can possibly take some of what Jalen Milroe does in the run game out of the game, and it'll be really interesting to see what Alabama's counter is on offense. Now, the reality is, when you talk about this game, you're very much looking at the defense. You're very much looking at what this Alabama defense is, and they kind of need to roll in this one. The South Carolina offense is good, don't get me wrong. They're not nearly good enough to keep Alabama out of place the same way Vanderbilt did, and frankly, if they are out of place the same way Vanderbilt was able to get them out of place, you got a problem if you're an Alabama fan. That's just the reality. They have to make sure that they roll in this game and play really, really good defense. And then on top of that, this is the game for Kalen DeBoer. This is the one where he proves everyone wrong, where he shows that he's an elite head coach, where he is able to bounce back the way that he necessarily wasn't able to last week. So definitely needs to figure out some stuff. And frankly, if he doesn't perform in this one, there will be a lot of Bama fans after him. That's just the reality of the position that he's in. But some players to watch. Rocket Sanders is probably back to full health this week. He was a little bit banged up against Ole Miss last week, and frankly, he's a huge player. He's someone that totally changes what that offense can be because you have to worry about the running back a little bit more than you have to worry about Lenore Sellers, and that opens up a lot of different things for that team. So very much need him back in this game, need to be able to get Alabama out of position the same way Diego Pavia did, and this is going to be a huge player to do that. And then we got Nick Emanwari. This guy's incredible. He's absolutely awesome to watch, makes so many plays on the outside for South Carolina, and frankly, he's going to see a lot of Ryan Williams on Saturday. There's no two ways about that. Now, some of that is position-based, some of that is matchup-based, depends on the system that you're in, but the reality is this kid's really, really good, and frankly, he is by far the best corner. I would be very surprised if he wasn't facing the by far best wide receiver on Alabama right about now. So it's going to be incredible to watch that unfold, a huge, huge matchup for this game. And then we got Justice Haynes. I need more from this Alabama run game. You have to give more to this pass game that's going to be as dangerous as anyone in the country. You can't get the run game going, then teams are absolutely going to have every ability to stop you. So have to get Justice Haynes going, have to get Jamarian Miller going, have got them going at different points, just not long enough, not as sustained as you really want it to be. So very much need to figure that out this upcoming weekend. And then you got Qual Rasad. This is an absolutely elite athlete in every sense of the word. Forced a fumble on Carson Beck in that Georgia game, and he needs to be all over the place. You talk about Lenore Sellers, he's going to cause a lot of problems for you. He's going to get out on that edge at least a couple of times, and you got to have a guy to chase him down, and this is probably the guy that's going to do that. Absolutely huge player for Alabama, and one of those guys that is just becoming a star before our eyes. Some keys to the game. Bama's headspace has to be number one, right? You talk about that week last week. That is something that Bama fans, Bama players have never experienced. They never expected they would experience, but now you got to pick yourself up and dust yourself off. We're going to figure out exactly what Kalen DeBoer's Alabama is really about this upcoming weekend, and I cannot wait to see what they're really about. Cannot wait to see just how they respond to all of the craziness of this past weekend. Also, the QB run game is going to be a factor here. Jalen Milroe is obviously dangerous. I don't think I have to tell you guys that, but they allowed Diego Pavia to get 56 yards. I know that doesn't sound crazy, but there were a couple of huge plays in that one, including that first down run to end the game. So they have to make sure Lenore Sellers just isn't a factor with his legs. If you keep him in the pocket, if you make sure that he's at home, he's not going to beat you, just plain and simple. That's not the way he plays football, so you're going to have to make sure that you keep him at home, keep this quarterback run game out of it, and whoever can do that better is going to have a really good shot to stop the other offense, and then the pass rush is going to be huge. Both these teams are very aggressive. Both have just elite athletes all over the field. They're absolutely awesome, and especially coming off the edge, both these teams have just dudes all over the place. But the reality is you got dudes that can evade. You got Jalen Milroe. You got Lenore Sellers. So whoever can put the quarterback on the ground more consistently is going to win this game, because both these guys, if they extend plays, are an absolute nightmare to deal with. So getting him on the ground is something that's going to be huge for this game, and frankly, I just think Alabama's going to be pissed off. I think they're going to be so mad. I think Malachi Moore in particular, there was a lot of talk around him. I've said my piece on that, but I think he's going to have his hair on fire. I think he's going to play incredible football. And although this defense, I don't necessarily love it, I think South Carolina will show that there's a couple of holes in this defense. And you probably won't feel all that much better if you're an Alabama fan for this defense going forward, but you'll get a win, you'll get back on the right track, and then you'll figure out all the other stuff later. And now we'll get to that game, Andre, because it's interesting. There's no two ways about that. Tennessee is favored by 15.5 in this one, and this is just really sketchy. Florida's coming into this one with nothing to lose. They officially are one of those teams that can just play football in front of them, not think about really anything else in the future, and just play the game that's right there. That is a dangerous thing to deal with, regardless of what you're coming off. Obviously, Tennessee has to be very focused in this game, coming off a game where they had no business losing in a lot of different ways to Arkansas. They very much need to bounce back in this one. And they get them at home, which is absolutely huge. And this is just one of those things where you really have to see the Tennessee that we expected to see this year. Show the Tennessee that played NC State, that played Oklahoma, show the offense that is as explosive as anyone in the country. And frankly, if Tennessee cannot, roll in this game, if they can't put on display and make everyone feel really good about them, they're staring down UGA and Bama with possibly 2 losses on their schedule. And even if it's 1 loss, you still can't feel great if you don't roll in this game, don't feel, dominant in this game, and then we'll figure out what's on the other side. But it's going to be really interesting to watch this unfold, and frankly, I think Florida has a fairly okay shot in this game. But a couple of players to watch. Chimere Dike is huge for this team. Florida doesn't necessarily have the elite wide receivers, especially with Trey Wilson kind of finding his way back from an injury. You need to find more guys. And this Tennessee defense, especially the back end, is pretty susceptible. There's a number of openings that you can expose. You can't do it with one wide receiver. So you can't just do it with Elijah Badger. You can't just do it with Trey Wilson. Very much need to get other guys involved, and Chimere Dike is making big-time strides this year. And then you got Shamar James. This is an absolutely elite player in every sense of the word. He is the best player on that Florida defense, and frankly, I think you look at this Tennessee offense, you can't beat them if they're not one-dimensional. You can't stop them if you can't slow down the run. It's exactly what Arkansas did, or they stopped the pass, to be totally fair. But the reality is, I think when you talk about this Tennessee offense, they're not easy to stop in any respect, but when you can take away that run just a little bit more, you have a very good shot, and that's exactly what Shamar James and really that entire front seven is going to have to deal with on Saturday. And then you got a couple more. I think you talk about Tennessee. Mike Matthews is a player that I just want to see unlocked a little bit more. And frankly, they have plenty of receivers, so it's not necessarily that he has to, but it sounds like Squirrel White's a little bit up in the air. It sounds like a number of different things are a little bit up in the air for that wide receiver room right now. Mike Matthews very much needs to get involved. There's no two ways about that. He needs to be a huge player for this team going forward. And in this game, you have a little bit of an opening against the back end for Florida that's not necessarily elite by any means to maybe get those chances for a young player like Mike Matthews. Arian Carter's huge in this game because when you talk about a team like Florida, when you talk about a running back like Montrell Johnson, as dangerous as there is in the entire country, he has to be on alert at every single point in this game. And frankly, I wouldn't be surprised if he was a little bit of a pass rusher in this game because you give Graham Mertz time, he is going to tear you to pieces. I know that sounds a little bit crazy, but Graham Mertz is a very good thrower of the football and absolutely can do a lot of good things against this back end that has some questions to answer. No two ways about that. But keys to the game. What is Tennessee's offensive identity? Because I'm having a tough time figuring it out. It's not necessarily that they're totally changing the way they go about business. They're totally changing the calls that they make. I just don't know how much they want to put on the shoulders of Nico Iamaleava. I don't know how much they want to ask of him, and I don't know if they're able to run the ball effectively enough to not ask a lot of Nico Iamaleava. So a lot to figure out. They had 2 turnovers on down, 7 punts in the last game, so can't happen again. No two ways about that. And then protection is going to be huge. I talked about Graham Mertz. If he's given time, he can play really elite football. And then Nico, I don't even have to say that. He absolutely can. A very incredible player and one of those guys that you give him a second to just set his feet and rip one, you're probably not doing anything against that. That's just the reality. So whoever can protect their quarterback, keep them upright more, probably in a good position to win this game. And then Florida's mentality. We talked about it a little bit ago. Are they a team that has nothing to lose and are just playing free? Or are they a little bit nervous about every single move that they make? Are they worried that Billy Napier is going to get fired after this game? There's a million different things that Florida has to weigh pretty much every single week of the season. Now, they have every ability to handle that. I don't doubt that they can handle that, go into Tennessee and play really good football. It's just a really weird situation. It's going to be a fantastic kind of case study of what this looks like in a college football scale because probably not going to be the last time it happens, where you feel pretty confident that a coach is out the door at the end of the season, but can't really do too much because of the schedule that we have in college football. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this unfold. And I think this game is going to give us a pretty good idea of what Florida is the rest of the season, at least from an energy perspective. But I do have Tennessee winning. I do think it's kind of a sketchy spot. Frankly, I think they might score late in this one to make it look a little bit better. But when I look at Florida right now, I think if they're not able to run the ball in this game, which I feel pretty confident they won't be able to do, it's going to be really hard to win this one. I think they have an ability to attack this back end, but frankly, if you can't get the run game going, if you let this pass rush get going, it's going to be a nightmare for you. So I think Tennessee makes enough plays. Now, I would put them on upset alert. No two ways about that. And I'll actually break down some of those tomorrow, so definitely tune in for that. But the reality is, this is one of those games that it's a little bit of a toss-up. I'm having a hard time figuring out exactly what Tennessee is going forward, and Florida's one of those teams that can kind of just throw stuff at the wall every single weekend and just hope that they get a win. So it's going to be really interesting to watch this one unfold. I think it's going to be pretty close in the fourth quarter, but I do think Tennessee makes that one play late in the game to get that win. But definitely a sketchy spot, Andre. No two ways about that. So it's going to be awesome to watch that game unfold. But let's take our third break here. And when we come back, we just got to talk about the top 10. We'll go through all the games these top 10 teams are playing and just what's the number one thing we need to see from these teams in this week. And if we don't see it, how worried about these teams are we going forward? So we'll break it down right after this, so stick with us.